The year 2025 marked a turning point in U.S. China relations, a shift from strategic competition to outright economic conflict. The two superpowers, locked in a battle for global dominance, entered a new era of mistrust and confrontation. The ramifications of this trade war are still being felt today, reshaping global alliances and the future of the international order. The simmering tensions between the U.S. and China, long focused on trade imbalances and intellectual property disputes, finally boiled over. The catalyst was the U.S. decision to impose a new round of tariffs on Chinese goods. This aggressive move, targeting $60 billion worth of Chinese exports, sent shockwaves through the global economy. The U.S. argued that these tariffs were necessary to protect American jobs and industries from unfair Chinese competition. Accusations of currency manipulation, forced technology transfer, and intellectual property theft became increasingly common. The U.S. demanded a fundamental reset of the economic relationship, calling for China to play by the rules of the international trading system. However, many analysts saw this as a sign of growing American insecurity. China's economic rise, coupled with its military modernization, had challenged America's long-held position as the world's sole superpower. The tariffs, they argued, were a desperate attempt to contain China's growing influence. The U.S. tariffs specifically targeted key sectors of the Chinese economy. These included advanced technology, telecommunications, and manufacturing. These sectors were crucial for China's ambitious Made in China 2025 plan. This plan aimed to transform China into a global leader in high-tech industries. The Trump administration believed that these tariffs would cripple China's economic growth. They hoped to force Beijing to make concessions on trade and economic policy. The tariffs were designed to increase the cost of Chinese goods for American consumers. This, in theory, would make American-made products more attractive. However, the tariffs had unintended consequences. They disrupted global supply chains and increased costs for American businesses and consumers. The agricultural sector, heavily reliant on the Chinese market, was particularly hard hit. American farmers found themselves with surplus crops and nowhere to sell them. The tariffs also failed to achieve their primary objective. They did not force China to back down. Instead, they hardened Beijing's resolve and fueled nationalist sentiment within China. China responded to the U.S. tariffs with retaliatory measures of its own. Beijing slapped tariffs on $60 billion worth of American goods, targeting politically sensitive sectors like agriculture and automobiles. This tit-for-tat escalation marked the beginning of a full-blown trade war. However, China's response went beyond just mirroring U.S. actions. China understood that a protracted trade war would be damaging to both sides. Yet it also recognized this as an opportunity to accelerate its long-term strategic goals. China used the trade war as a catalyst to reduce its dependence on the U.S. and create a more self-reliant economy. China aggressively pursued new trade partnerships, particularly with countries in Southeast Asia, Africa, and Europe. Beijing sought to strengthen its economic ties with these regions through initiatives like the Belt and Road Initiative. This massive infrastructure project aimed to connect China to the rest of the world, creating new markets for Chinese goods and services. China also doubled down on its efforts to become a technological powerhouse. It poured billions into research and development, focusing on areas like artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and biotechnology. China's goal was clear: to become a global leader in the industries of the future. China's response to the trade war was not limited to external measures. It also undertook significant internal reforms to boost domestic consumption and reduce its reliance on exports. Beijing recognized that a more balanced economy, less dependent on the U.S. market, was crucial for its long-term stability and prosperity. China invested heavily in its domestic market, promoting innovation and entrepreneurship. It also sought to increase the purchasing power of its citizens, creating a more robust consumer base. This shift towards self-reliance was a direct response to the growing protectionism and unilateralism of the United States. China's leaders believed that the U.S. was attempting to contain China's rise and maintain its global hegemony. They saw the trade war as part of a broader strategy to undermine China's economic and technological progress. In this context, self-reliance was not just an economic necessity but also a matter of national security. American casualties. While China adapted and adjusted its strategy, the trade war began to take a toll on the American economy. The tariffs, initially touted as a way to protect American jobs, ended up hurting many of the very people they were meant to help. American farmers, once reliable exporters to China, saw their markets evaporate overnight. Soybean farmers in particular were hit hard, as China was their largest customer. The prices of agricultural commodities plummeted, forcing many farms into bankruptcy and rural communities into economic distress. American consumers also felt the pinch as the tariffs drove up the prices of everyday goods. Everything from electronics to clothing became more expensive, putting a strain on household budgets. The tariffs, intended to punish China, ended up hurting American consumers and businesses alike. Resource control, the new battlefield. The trade war also highlighted China's growing dominance in the global supply chains of critical raw materials. China had spent years strategically securing access to resources like rare earth minerals, which are essential components in everything from smartphones to electric vehicles. This control over critical resources gave China significant leverage in the trade war. It could threaten to restrict the supply of these materials, disrupting industries in the United States and other Western countries. This realization sparked a scramble among Western nations to diversify their supply chains and reduce their dependence on China for these vital resources. China also diversified its energy imports, reducing its reliance on any single supplier. It signed long-term energy deals with Russia, Central Asian countries, and even invested in renewable energy projects in Africa and South America. This strategic diversification was aimed at insulating China from potential disruptions in global energy markets. The debt dilemma. Another front in the escalating economic conflict was the issue of U.S. debt. China had been the largest foreign holder of U.S. Treasury bonds for years. This gave Beijing considerable leverage over U.S. fiscal policy. However, as the trade war intensified, China began to reduce its holdings of U.S. debt. This move, while gradual, sent shockwaves through global financial markets. It raised concerns about a potential fire sale of U.S. debt, which could have destabilized the global economy. China's reduced investment in U.S. debt was a clear sign of its waning confidence in the U.S. economy and its willingness to use its financial clout as leverage in the ongoing trade dispute. This financial maneuvering further complicated the already tense relationship between the two countries. It also highlighted the interconnectedness of the global economy and the potential for economic conflict to spill over into other areas. A world divided. The 2025 trade war marked a significant turning point in U.S. China relations. It shattered the illusion of a cooperative relationship and ushered in an era of mistrust and confrontation. The trade war had far-reaching consequences, reshaping global alliances and the international order. The world was increasingly dividing into two competing blocs, one led by the United States and the other by China. This new bipolarity had profound implications for everything from trade and technology to security and diplomacy. The future of the international system, once defined by U.S. hegemony, was now uncertain. The 2025 trade war was not just about tariffs and trade deficits. It was a symptom of a deeper rivalry between the United States and China, a struggle for global dominance in the 21st century. The outcome of this rivalry will shape the world for generations to come.